can we know the one who becomes conscious? There is nothing holier and greater than the indwelling supreme consciousness. It is nothing but the form of God. To explain this, the body is described in mundane terms. Our true nature is self, and not the body and mind complex. The body is an object to you and not your real nature. Your existence, along with the world, is within your consciousness. That which is witness to both the body and the world is the true form of God, and is also your real nature. It does not belong to any single person. You know yourself by the name given to you by your parents. But can you point to the one who has become conscious? No. The knowledge dawned in the limited consciousness of the person delivered the entire universe. To whom did it happen cannot be spoken, as the manifestation is universal and all-pervading. What is being perceived is an expression of the sense of being, the knowingness. What we see is just a dream. The real experiencer of the world outside is the knowingness or the nature of the light, and not any particular being. Your inner self is Krishna, and you see him in everything. Whatever you perceive, from an insect to a human being, from a dust particle to a diamond, is not different from you, but you begin to see yourself in everything that appears. The entire manifestation is your own self. Different names have been assigned to various objects for the purpose of their identification. Whatever has appeared is a part of the manifestation which has a beginning and an end. All this is an expression of consciousness. That what is prior to it is the eternal and the true, that which has no beginning nor an end. Krishna delivered this message to Uddhava, who recognized it as an expression of Krishna. He saw Krishna in everything and everyone. Do not assume Krishna. When the eyes are closed, and yet the seeing takes place, it is the vast and the infinite. It is without attributes neither good nor bad. The Lord's true nature is so vast and so limitless that many universes appear and disappear in it. That reality is what we are prior to our knowingness. The one who is delighted by that understanding is immersed in that lake of bliss. Our sense of being springs from this highest state called Adhyatma, which is prior to everything. Who can help or harm the person who is one with the self? For him, help and harm are the same. Both are concepts of the mind. There is an easy way to intuitively experience this understanding as a fact within your own life. You must constantly sip this milk of consciousness by forgetting the body and mind. If this cannot be practiced, then one must chant Jai Guru Dev, which is the name for complete consciousness. Do not interpret this knowledge with the aid of the mind. Only then does the true knowledge of being the self dawn. While chanting, remember the meaning of the mantra. That jnana, the enlightenment, finds a way to express itself through your personality. Our existence lit up. Lord Krishna was a ruler of the Yadava clan. In Marathi, the word Yaad is a word for memory or recollection. The Lord is a recollection of one's own existence. Our birth is an event and phenomenality, which has never happened in reality. What has happened is that our existence lit up. The awareness of our being is an expression of God, for it emanates from Him. All movements are noticed due to consciousness, and hence it represents the ground of being. Maya, that brings the news of the existence of Paramatma, is also the devotion, the sense of being, and the power that sustains it. It is the same power that constantly fuels our waking and the sleeping state. Being the aura of Paramatman, it is ever active. Just as the image of the moon is reflected by the water in a pot, that which shines through this body is a reflection of Paramatman. All sensual experiences are subtle. Hearing of sound, sense of touch, sight of an object, and the fragrance of a substance are all devoid of shape or form. My true nature is exempt from all mundane objects of attachment or desires and cannot be an object to itself. The 5 elements that constitute the manifestation appear as objects in existence, but lack consciousness and the knowingness of their own existence. This knowledge is the experience of all experiences, and the witness in this is Purushottama, the Lord. While living life, one thoroughly knows this by intuition, but the cognition of it does not happen easily, nor can it be proved. Only when discriminated, its meaning becomes clear. That's why it is very subtle. One must cognize that all sensual experiences are transitory. The misconception must be cleared. However, this cannot be done by performing karma or religious practices. To light up the basement of the house, does it help to offer prayers at a temple nearby? Isn't it simply better to bring a flashlight instead? Listen to the Guru's words with intense faith, and without polluting them with intellectual analysis. Only then you understand and experience the immaculate bliss of the self, which is exempted from mundane objects of attachment or desire. No one remains to live after realization. To know the ultimate truth, the truth about the origin, must be known. Ultimate means that which finally remains when all else is over. A place might be familiar, but one cannot live there as a knower for eternity. When the days of being born are over, then this world is also over. For those who transact in the world as their bodies, the world still exists. For Jnani, the universe that can be accommodated in matter cannot be true. To know that the world is only an appearance, one may have to be in unification with Lord Vishnu, who is not different from your consciousness. The Lord is you, and you are not different from him. He provides and sustains your knowingness. Be one with your consciousness by meditating over it. Consciousness is to be acquainted with the light of Atman. The human body, which is made of 5 elements, is filled with filth to the brim, and yet the all-illuminating Atman shines brightly through it. The sense of being, the I consciousness, is a proof of this. When this light is extinguished, the body begins to decompose and becomes filth again. This is the significance of the light of consciousness that shines through it. Isn't it true, then, that Atma, the light of consciousness shining through the body, is the only thing that matters? The body consciousness thrives, carrying on with all its activities. But this activity and involvement prevent the person performing meditation. By engaging in the worldly activities all the time, there is no time left to inquire within. So one must strive hard to not forget to look within to see our own true nature. For the light of knowingness, this enlightenment, is in essence your nature, the support of your existence, and the purifier of your being. That light is ever pure, holy and immaculate. That light of consciousness nurtures the 5 elements that constitute your body by pervading the entire manifested universe. Do not attempt to seek this Atma outside you. You will not find it, as you are already that. Atma is your true nature. It is said, "To meet we went and broke apart. In separation did we find unity." Don't forget what you are right now, and the understanding that you were never separate from him will dawn. Do not forget that you are Paramatman, here and now. Stop worrying over the concerns about the perishable life and pay complete attention to seeking your true nature. It is the rare one who is fortunate enough. The one who is a true seeker conducts his or her duties well enough, but the attention is always established in the self. He or she is most anxious to know about their true nature. If he plans or thinks of anything, it is about his own true nature. His seeking is an unbroken and continuous effort, unlike that of the others, who embrace the perishable and the false things in life. One must merge into a constant awareness of self, as you are pure Parabrahman, prior to all definitions. Meditate on this awareness silently. Paramatman, who is identified and expressed as the 5 elements that constitute the world, is your true Swarupa, your true nature. Only by his grace and power alone can we recognize the light and the darkness. Like a tree, this body will surely fall someday. One must try to save oneself now by running away, not by ending one's life, as you never know when the indwelling Atma is propitiated, liberating you. Do not take too much care of the body to the extent of pampering it. If you say, "Let me first enjoy life to the fullest, and later I shall turn to God," that is not practicable. Hence, always keep in mind that you are the light of conscious awareness that ever shines forth within you. Be mindful all the time. When it is cognized that one's true nature is Paramatman, the filthy body stands sanctified and becomes valuable. Millions fall at the feet of such a person. What has such a person done, after all? He has just identified his true nature while being in the body. That what is known as Atman is our true nature, and this must be known just once. That will be the final understanding. One glimpse of that knowledge is enough to permanently ward off the eternal ignorance fueling all desires. What happens in life thereafter is only that which is sanctioned by reality. When Brahman merges back into Brahman, the matter is complete and over. Meditation shows that consciousness is universal. What does it mean when I say, "I am in everything"? My true nature is the all-pervading and universal self. The manifestation of self on earth is interwoven with the 5 elements. Through ignorance, that universal expression is assumed by us to be bound in our little personality. Everyone runs with his own backpack and thinks he is separate from others. When does one realize their oneness with the universe? One must meditate for that. Through meditation, one recognizes oneness with the universe and knows that this knowledge is universal. Once that happens, no person remains to share your grief or joy. Consciousness becomes your most intimate acquaintance and friend. Now that you know the meaning of me as the self, without any separate existence, How can you ever be selfish? Even the need for knowingness becomes unnecessary. Thereafter there remains no need even to sustain that knowingness or self-love, since the knowingness itself has been met and cognized. For an enlightened person, consciousness conducts life with true discrimination. There remains no distinction between mind, intellect, and consciousness. They are simply known as various aspects of the same truth. The real thing that is born becomes known. Where was this thing born? It was born deep in the womb of the mother. It is the sattva from which the content of the womb was created. When this sattva becomes old and weak, the consciousness vanishes. This body and consciousness were mistaken as a source of happiness. But all throughout life, no real joy arose from it, only misery. When this knowledge of being turns out to be ignorance, there is true knowledge or realization. At the end, it becomes clear that the so-called knowledge is just speaking about pure ignorance. This requires firm determination and insistence that one is not the body, but consciousness. One's nature as consciousness is vast and not limited. However, the duration of its existence is time-bound and not permanent. My existence is not that which is appearing to you, but that which supports everything. While there is this liquid or the touch of life in our bodies, the sense of being lingers. When you arrive at the right place by practicing yoga, all your activities turn out to be a dream that is run by your beingness. You continue life as usual, but gradually you realize that basically there were no activities at all. Your beingness has no reality, and nothing good or bad can ever happen to it. You exist due to self-love, but you behave as if you love your body more. Hence, the vicissitudes of life affect you. The discrimination between truth and false eliminates all misery. By deploying viveka, the faculty of distinguishing truth from illusion, drink the essence of the true spiritual knowledge. Then you realize that in reality, none has ever arrived, nor has anyone gone away. For this understanding to dawn, be devoted and become the true devotee. The one who knows all this to be Parabrahman alone is a true devotee. It appears in myriad forms, and yet it is untouched by them. The 1,000 names addressed to the Lord all belong to the devotees. Know that everything that can be described in words is merely a blend of food and water. The one who earnestly desires to know God is called mumukshu. The one who is initiated into this path of knowledge is called a sadhaka, and one who finally knows the self is called a siddha, an accomplished one. Meditate on your knowingness. All sadhanas or spiritual practices that are adopted are valid and necessary until one destroys the ignorance about one's true nature. It could be chanting the names of the Lord, uttering His praise, or singing hymns. The most important method is dhyana, or giving attention to the inner consciousness, without using mind as the tool. Meditate on your consciousness, which is also self-love. All these words are its limbs. This self-love protects the entire world by virtue of its higher qualities. The activities that happen due to consciousness are much less compared to those that happen spontaneously and unknowingly due to Parabrahman. We see the darkness of night by our sense of being. Both day and night are in consciousness. Our true nature is eternal and functions without any desire or planning. We must know that Guru and disciple both are its names. This knowledge comes through penance. Where must one perform this penance? The ideal place is the place where you come to know your existence. The so-called birth has assumed the shape and form. That what is created and provides the protection for the process of living. As long as there is life, a movie is projected that shows the destiny of a being. A chemical called sattva takes the necessary pictures for creating this movie. It is all an old story, and there is nothing new about it. It is the inherent quality of consciousness that all forms ultimately become formless, and there is neither an I nor is there a you in it. It is a movie of consciousness. If I and you were true, we would recollect memories spanning many births. Just as a seed which sprouts from soil has no I-amness, this is true for all the forms of consciousness. The power of consciousness is infinite and does not belong to an individual. All appearances are its forms. The world appears in one moment and disappears in the next. This action continues to happen all the time. The world appears in the light of consciousness, and the process of its birth and death happen continuously. God's presence is prior to words. The body is not your form, as you have no form other than Parabrahman. Your nature is not different from that Paramatman. It is meaningless and unfruitful to assume oneself to be the body and then talk about God, since God is prior to anything that could be described by words. Any effort to praise him by words is also worthless. What comes after the words is Brahman. Consciousness has been active for eons, and yet no one has been able to affect or change it. Many were born and climbed to the top of the ladder of success, but even they could not succeed in bringing about any change in the natural process of creation, sustenance, and dissolution. Nobody's absence or presence can cause any change in the natural order of events. Even though this body is filthy within, it contains the potential of knowing its oneness with Brahman. This body has the faith of beingness, which itself is our consciousness, indicating the presence of Atman. This knowledge of our being has been projected as the concept of a heavenly God. And thus we have persons like Sai Baba who are born on this earth, like the layer of cream that appears on the boiling milk. The word Saayi in Marathi means the cream of milk. The quality of cream or Saayi is knowingness, which we sense as our consciousness. The existence of Baba is an expression of dynamic Brahman. That which cannot be felt by us is Parabrahman. That which is the completeness, that which leaves little else to be done. All that happens is spontaneous and without your intervention. It is merely witnessed by you. Life is not restricted to any individual. Paramatman is ever-present and all-pervading without any wish to be created, for he is eternal existence itself. People describe him with many words and many languages, and yet he is inaccessible to words of praise and description, for he is beyond all names and forms. Paramatman is one without a second. He alone exists in spite of all appearances. Pure consciousness is also the purest ignorance. Only by knowing this can one become peaceful. The birth of God arose from the concept of your beingness. True peace of mind is available only after realizing oneself to be the witness or the knower of that concept. You are the mortal human. You are the consciousness, and you are Parabrahman as well. But do not think you are in whatever you see, for the entire manifestation arises and plays about within you. Know that this is your own experience and thus be in supreme peace. Rise above all pretenses of being a saint, a sage, or an incarnation, or a yogi, as such pretenses would bind you to a prescribed pattern of living. Know that your swarupa, your true nature, is always free of bondage from all descriptions and structures, such as colors and forms. Cognize this fact and be in eternal peace. All of this must be realized by you. Whatever appears does not exist in reality. Only that which does not appear exists. Whatever is perceptible to us, we believe it to be true, but it is not permanent. Just as thoughts come and go, so do people come here and go. What is happening is just witnessing of everything. There is no permanent sense of anything coming or going. There is no liking or disliking of anyone in this witnessing. Consciousness is our unchanging companion since birth. Due to the presence of the mind, consciousness is the reason for the chaos in our lives. Hence, I ask consciousness to leave me alone. This applies even to the greatest of gods who are worshipped. After all, what is God other than a form imagined and worshipped by people? He is not an individual, but his nature is like a place. And yet, its presence is filled with chaos and disturbs the health. Hence, I must ask it to leave. No one made any effort to be born. The love that happened between two beings created a life form. This birth was the beginning of all the trouble. Consciousness is never born out of its own free will. Only after the birth has happened it realizes that someone is born. It is the union of restlessness and stillness. When duality encountered unity, the consciousness bliss was born. That is what all of us are. By listening to these words, the intellect suddenly gets perplexed. No one is ready and patient to listen to this knowledge, because the one who will listen and postpone will perish. If these words are correctly understood and take effect, there will be no necessity to perform any meditation. Sometimes the effect of these words is similar to death. If a person receives the news that he has an incurable ailment and death is the only possible result, the very news could kill him. That's how powerful these words are, and that's the kind of effect the words of the Master should have upon you. Only then will you know your true nature. Mere knowledge about God will not help. God is born out of imagination. I depend on God for His sake. Having known my true nature, the idea of birth was only amusing as a concept. Although the origin of all existence is one and the same, each one differs in its expression. For instance, a pancake has pores. The distribution of these pores varies for each pancake and cannot be pre-planned. Similarly, whatever changes happens to a human being, they are potentially there at the time of birth. The world outside is born out of our consciousness. This means that the world was always dwelling in our consciousness. Without saying anything or believing anything, at the source of everything is the knowledge of our being. That knowingness, the sense of being, is fundamental to one's purpose of life, whether or not one talks about it or recognizes it. Para-Brahman means unalloyed bliss that is exempt from every mundane object of attachment or desire. Unless one's eagerness to know the self becomes urgent, it cannot be gained. Holding on to duality will not do. One has to recognize that there is pain and suffering in duality. Whatever is perceived is merely a taste of the 5 elements. The reality which is prior to the experience of our being must be properly understood. This has to be done by you alone. The answer to this query comes within you, and it will be cognized by you in its true significance. The first thing in your life is to know that you exist. Only then do you know that you have parents and understand the language of your mother, although you were without any language until then. The knowledge of being is the power that gives birth to many incarnations. The world outside that we perceive exists because we exist. When enlightenment happens, the so-called faith in being a person, the world, and the selfishness disappear. The necessity of words vanishes as well, and only the supreme peace remains. What the words can point towards is different from the understanding that dawns after direct experience of enlightenment, aparakshanabhuti. The knowingness is born out of sattva, which in turn owes its birth to the quintessence of the food that is consumed. In that quintessence is embedded the blueprint of the universe, which then takes the shape of the world. The power of sattva first takes the pictures and then assumes various forms accordingly.